The endless progression of technology is constantly providing us with new ways to express our creativity. You had the invention of the piano, acrylic paints, the camera, the toaster. From the inception of the Lumatone, it dawned on the engineers that its unique sensors could give rise to a whole new mode of expression. It's called Lumatouch. And today we'll take a little peek at its possibilities. Alright folks, Dave here, and today we are talking about a one-of-a-kind and totally unique way of performing on the Lumatone. We've already talked about continuous controllers and polyphonic aftertouch, but what happens when you combine the two? Well, you get what they call Lumatouch. Now this new mode of expression lends itself to a whole new style of performing, and it's really used for very specific kinds of playing, particularly drones and pads and swells. Essentially, it lets you play normally, and once you engage it, it converts your key into a continuous controller mid-performance. The keys you're holding down will then act as a sensitive fader, controlling any parameter you've assigned to your instrument's aftertouch as you press in and out on the entire range of the key. Okay, so how do we make use of this? First off, you're going to want to make sure that your Lumatone is set up and ready to engage Lumatouch. And we can do this using the editor software. So once you've got a mapping pulled up in your editor, you can decide which keys you want to have enabled for Lumatouch. I'll most often make a mapping with every key set to Lumatouch and have it saved as a Lumatouch mapping for when I want to make use of it. But you could absolutely choose to have only certain sections or keys be Lumatouch keys. For example, maybe you want your left hand to perform using the traditional polyphonic aftertouch, and your right hand could take advantage of Lumatouch, which is essentially expanding polyphonic aftertouch to include the entire key travel instead of just the aftertouch region. But that's just one of many ways to go about it. You really do have complete control on how any of these 280 keys will perform. But for this example, I will convert the entire board. So let's head over to the manual assign section here. And assuming the only thing you want to change about this mapping is converting it to Lumatouch, make sure the only parameter you have checked is the key type, so we don't mess with any other settings of the keys. From the key type drop-down menu here, we just select Lumatouch, and we simply select all the keys that we want to convert to Lumatouch. And in this example, that'll be in all 5 sections. And one more very important thing, you are going to want to make sure you've got the polyphonic aftertouch box checked in the general settings there, because it is required to make Lumatouch happen, since Lumatouch is engaged by pressing into the aftertouch region. So as I said, a great way to use Lumatouch is when you're playing pads or drones or anything you hold for a long time. Polyphonic aftertouch is already great for manipulating these kinds of sounds, but now you can add more range of expression by controlling your polyphonic aftertouch parameter with the entire range of the key, instead of just the aftertouch region at the bottom of the key travel. All right, let's start by pulling up a nice fat pad in our DAW here. This is a classic synth right here, and in this software version, we actually have the ability to assign aftertouch parameters right here in the advanced section. And whatever parameter you assign to aftertouch in any instrument is what your Lumatouch key will control. And it's engaging aftertouch that converts your key into a Lumatouch key. So let's go ahead and assign the VCF cutoff, crank that up, and we'll go with the LFO rate as well. So remember, Lumatouch is engaged by pressing all the way to the bottom of the aftertouch region. And you can play the keys as normal note on or off keys until you engage it. To trigger Lumatouch, simply apply more pressure beyond the travel of the key. Once you've done that, the key will have converted into a fader, and you can now control the assigned parameter by simply moving the key up and down. You'll notice when the key is released, we're given a slight grace period where we can choose to engage the key again as a Lumatouch key. But then beyond that second of release, the note we're playing will stop and it will go back to being a normal note on or off key. Just like polyphonic aftertouch, this behavior can be controlled separately on each individual key. So Lumatouch will only kick in on the notes you want. All right, let's now take a look at splitting up the Lumatone so just half the board are Lumatouch keys. As I mentioned before, we could set things up so the left hand is performing polyphonic aftertouch and the right hand can have further control by taking advantage of Lumatouch. So just make sure you've got your original mapping with no keys converted to Lumatouch yet. And we can go ahead and convert the keys to say just section 3, 4, and 5. This leaves section 1 and 2 available to be performed on with regular polyphonic aftertouch, while the other half of the board controls parameters using Lumatouch. So this feature really does lend itself well to a specific style of playing. You know, shaping drones and swells and pads in a really tactile way that provides real-time feedback mid-performance. But that doesn't mean you can't experiment outside the usual parameters you would assign to that style. You know, what would happen if we assign, say, the pitch to any given note? So for this example, we'll use the fantastic and free synth Surge, which I've gushed about before. And let's assign the pitch to the polyphonic aftertouch, which will allow the Lumatouch keys to basically be converted into a pitch bend wheel, with the fluid convenience of it being whichever key or note you choose. So I covered assigning polyphonic aftertouch and Surge in the polyphonic aftertouch video, which you can check out. But just quickly hit polyphonic AT, move that blue fader up where you want your maximum pitch to be. And now when we engage Lumatouch, it almost starts to feel like we're playing a theremin. You can get pretty bizarre. Let's try it out. Lumatouch is just one more mode of expression on the Lumatone that lets you chase a whole new style of playing. And while it does take some getting used to, you'll find you start reacting to your chords and progressions in ways that really inspire you. It's another layer of control that can help you shape certain sounds in ways that are more intuitive and in the moment. But we have a whole lot more aspects to cover on the Lumatone. So be sure to hit like and subscribe to be notified about the next one. Thanks for watching.